Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the 21st edition of the Online Education Leadership Forum panel discussion series focused on transforming education for human and planetary flourishing. Thank you so much for investing your time with us on a weekday. We appreciate your presence and participation. My name is Aryan Salman, and I'm the moderator for this panel discussion. The topic for the 21st Educational Leadership Forum panel discussion is how can we ensure meaningful change through education for sustainable development? Education for sustainable development is one of the key themes of global citizenship education and is an explicit mandate of United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 4 and Target 4.7. The discussion today is to reflect on ways of moving from fostering awareness and checklisted actions to promoting active and reflective actions across learners' lifestyles to ensure sustainable living and sustainability of our planet. We are very hopeful that this discussion contributes to our mission of transforming education for human and planetary flourishing. That being said, I take immense pleasure in welcoming our panelists on stage. We have with us Luana Ferreira Lopez, a PhD researcher, lecturer, and member of the Teaching Innovation Unit at the University of Deutsche in Bilbao, Spain. Her research focuses on the use of intercultural virtual collaboration to bridge cultures and integrate sustainable development goals into education. She is also specialized in design and assessment of competency-based learning. It is my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Olugbenga Ayo Ojubanare. Olugbenga is a dedicated leader and a training consultant at the human capital development space with several projects in excellence. He's currently undergoing a, a doctorate in management, innovation, and entrepreneurship at the Euro-Mediterranean University of Fez in Morocco under the African Union Scientific Research and Innovation Council doctoral research grant. Olugbenga is a certified program project manager with more than 8 years of experience in human capital development projects. He devotes his time to developing competencies of young people across by incorporating aspects of leadership with Corporate Affairs Commission. Uh, and he has trained almost about 7,000 youths, 7,000 youth in Nigeria uh, with, with international and national partners. He's provided valuable support as a coach at the Tony Emalu Foundation Entrepreneurs. So a very warm welcome to both of you present here. We might be joined by Michael Fuluke, but we don't have her yet. So I just want to acknowledge that if she joins in, then we also have an introduction for her as we move forward. As you all know, we are living in increasingly challenging and uncertain times with enormous changes and disruptions to our lives and professions. It is time for us to assume active global citizenship and support those in need. I'd like to take this moment to mark a minute of silence for those who have lost their lives to the scourge of violence, wars, and the pandemic, the grieving individuals and families, and in solidarity with academics and education leaders in conflict zones, including Ukraine, Yemen, Afghanistan, and other war and conflict affected areas around the world. Thank you. Now we ring the bell to thank and honor our educators and others on the front line who carry out essential roles selflessly, continuing their day-to-day duties inside and outside the home in support of us all. We want you to know that your struggle and commitment for a better future for our world inspires us all. Thank you. Now, the Educational Leadership Forum was started to provide a platform for educational leaders to shape, empower, influence, and advance the discourse on, and be a springboard aiding action towards transforming education for human and planetary flourishing. Through the Educational Leadership Forum series, the Global Citizenship Foundation and the Council for Global Citizenship Education are committed to supporting educational leaders and educators by connecting experts, practitioners, and education leaders from across the globe to discuss and share critical and innovative ideas, best practices, and perspectives aimed at transforming education for human and planetary flourishing. So, our goal today is whatever your role is in the education sector, you'll come away with something, a fresh perspective, a new idea, a new strategy that you can apply to be more successful at doing what you're doing best while ensuring the much needed continuous professional development required to transform education for human and planetary flourishing. So, in the audience, you can use the comment section and the reaction buttons. So, you can see at the bottom the reaction buttons to engage. So, you can use them. You can also use the chat box as well as the Q&A section to ask your questions. So, in the second half of our event, we will focus on and highlight your questions on the screen and address them live as we create this learning and engaging experience for all. So, the purpose of this event is to navigate present and upcoming opportunities, issues, challenges together to transform education for human and planetary flourishing. Now, I open the floor to the panel discussion by requesting our panelists to make the initial remarks. So uh, we have Luana. So Luana, if you can open the floor with your comments.
Okay, thank you so much for having me here today. It is a pleasure to discuss such a relevant topic with all of you. And for me, it's very interesting to see how this event is framed as a question. No, so how can we ensure meaningful change through education for sustainable development? And while I was thinking about answers to this question, I remember the work of three colleagues of mine here from University of Deusto. After they carried out a very comprehensive literature review about education for sustainable development, it was interesting that they came to the conclusion that there is no magic solution for this. No, there is not a one size fits all. What we do have are some hints on what works better than other things, no? So in these 5 minutes, I'm going to share with you a few hints that I've been collecting recently. So first of all, I believe that education for sustainable development requires a change in mindset. Um, I believe it's not about teaching content, but teaching sustainable development more as a competence. What I mean is that the other day I was giving a talk about SDGs to Cambodian students while I was sitting here in Spain. And I was thinking that I could tell them about sustainability. I could tell them about the 17 sustainable goals, but I could not tell them how to specifically implement it in Cambodia. No, their context is totally different from mine. So what I understood that I could do for sure as an educator is to help them to see the world through critical lens, no, to help them to really observe their surroundings with new eyes and to motivate them to identify in their environment what they could improve. So from my point of view, it's mainly about providing students with critical thinking as a tool, as a supporting capacity, then really teaching sustainability as a content. And secondly, in the same line, I believe that sustainable education is also teaching through example, no? So it's about integrating sustainability into institutions' agendas. So it's not about teaching, hey, this is that. No, it's saying sustainability is in our DNA. This is how we do it here in our school. This is how we do it in our university. And thirdly, I was also thinking that education for sustainable development requires a lot of collaboration between different players. So we have to work together. We can do it alone. We have seen that there are some heroes out there, and they here in our panel, we have some of those heroes, no, who have really interesting initiatives around the globe. But it works much better if we do it together as a group, students, researchers, community. As an educator, I can't also help but think about what are the best learning or teaching learning methodologies to teach education for sustainable development. And what I have been observing and researching is that, of course, those that are closer to experiential approach work better. And we have plenty of options like service learning, challenge based learning, problem based learning, project based learning. No? So we can draw from them. Finally, I think that sustainable development is about sharing good practices. And this is also what we are doing here today, no? And from my personal experience or personal and professional experience as an educator, I have also been seeing that nowadays, especially after COVID, we can take a lot of advantage of technology and international collaboration and even international student collaboration to exchange good practices in sustainable education and education for sustainable development, not only locally at the national level, but also at the international level. So yes, it's these are my main perspectives in this topic. Thank you very much for having me here again, and I'm looking forward to hearing the contributions of my other colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Luana. We have Faloki here. So let me just briefly introduce Faloki once again to all of you. So Faloki Michael has is a change maker, and she has won the UN SDG Innovator Award and the University of Salford Alumni Achievement Award in recognition of her exceptional contribution to society. She is a project management consultant, author, and SDG implementer. Faloki is the CEO and project director of Creative Youth Community Development Initiative and Solution 17. She's recently launched the Just Act publication series and movie. She's a graduate from the University of Salford, UK. Faluki was recognized as the hero of climate action by the most influential people of African descent. So, a very warm welcome to you, Faluki. If I might have the opportunity to yield the floor to you.
Okay, can you hear me, please? Oh, okay. Thank you. It's a big pleasure for me to be joining you right here in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm so happy to be here. So I'll go straight to my 5 minute contribution. Right. How may we ensure meaningful change through education for sustainable development? I will start by shining a light on what education for sustainable development is and why we need it. So, education for sustainable development is the education for the future and by the future. This is the solution the world needs right now. The solution that world needs to ensure our planet do not go into extinction. If we must ensure that we still have a place to live, we should be talking about education for sustainable development goal. So, why do we need this education? Like I've said, human activities globally have altered our ecosystem as we speak. Global warming is on the increase. We are struggling to achieve 1.5 degrees centigrade, and that's why the entire world leader is gathering right now in Egypt. Why? We need to address environmental, social, and economic problems. And only human being can provide this solution. And the only element of this solution being created is us, all of us around the world, to embrace the education for sustainable development goal. To achieve this point that I've raised, we need to reimagine education for the future. Education for problem solving, solution driven education, which aims to bring about personal and societal transformation. So, how do we achieve this quickly? How do we achieve education for society transformation? We must create a platform, ecosystem for global advocates like all of us on this call and those that are also listening to us to deliver education for sustainable development. How? We need a network of trainers that will bath this platform. And we also need new participants through something called education for network marketing to bring more people on board globally. These people must be trained to deliver the knowledge and skill needed to transform our society and our world. So, what is the role of this global advocate? They will have to strengthen capacity of government to provide quality solution driven climate change education. Two, they need to create knowledge centers for further knowledge and information sharing. Three, they need to provide policy guidance and technical support to policymakers and developmental partners, either locally, on community level, or internationally. They also need to implement sustainable projects with innovative approaches. And five, enhance non-formal education program through media, social networking, tech-driven incubation lab, and sustainable partnership. So, before we round up this section, I'm going to be telling you what we've done differently. All of these elements that I've mentioned, what we are using to implement sustainable development project through education for sustainable development. And I'm going to shine a light on how we have done it, why is it successful, what lesson can you learn, and how may we collaborate to get this done. I will stop right here. Thank you.
Thank you, Foloke, for that one. So really appreciate your insights on this one. So I yield the floor to Olugbenga.
Okay, thank you all. It's really interesting to be here, and have said I was going to start this way. That over time I've been on panel sessions where we would have to garnish the session with female panelists, but I'm glad to be that male spice that is garnishing this female panel session. Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. So when we talk about education for sustainable development, I like to start with the fact that the best we can get from any tool depends on how much of that tool that we know. Can education for sustainable development be used to implement meaningful change? Absolutely, yes. But how much of this change can we implement depends on how much of the content of education for sustainable development we truly know. It's very easy, and I see most stakeholders just, talk about phenomenological issues like this based on just the clout that comes with it here. Everybody is talking about ESD, 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 and then we are also talking about it. But how much of ESD do we really know? Because this is where the meaningful change begins. So, true education itself brings with it change because the only evidence of learning is change. So, if there is indeed a learning that has occurred, then there has to be a change. So, I like to say that education for sustainable development stands on a three-legged pillar that hinges around the learners. And this is what exactly are the learners learning? What are we learning? Or we call it the content of education. What's education teaching now? The second will be how are we teaching what we are teaching? What teaching pedagogies are we adopting? What instructional approaches? And in this case, this is where we begin to talk about, we talk about experiential learning, action learning, problem solving methodologies, where students come together, pick a problem of interest, and decide on how they want to solve it. Community based learning and different other non-formal forms of learning. We need to understand that education in the 21st century is beyond the four walls of the classroom. It's education is way more than that, and in fact, I will say, objectively that maybe we learn a lot more outside the classroom than we actually do in the classroom. So we need to understand that education for sustainable development revolves a lot around how we deliver the content for this ESD. And then the third leg of this tripod is what do we do with what we learn? Education for sustainable development is a action stimulating learning approach and teaching approach. It is supposed to be something you learn that drives you to doing something. It's not just for the sake of preparing students for the traditional workplace. Like my fellow panelists, Fologa said, we are in a rapidly evolving society, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, digitalization, globalization, industrialization, all human effort creating in our human environment. And we cannot sit and fold our arms and continue to do the same things, same way, and expect a different output. So, education for sustainable development is future oriented, but that future starts right now, and it is learner centered, and the learners also have to be a part of the process. So to wrap up in my 5 minutes of opening, I would say, so how do we move from where we are to where we should be? I think this starts first with awareness. And when I say awareness, I mean true awareness, or should I say awareness that drives increase in knowledge of what ESD truly is, because we would only use it as much as we know it. And the second will be a holistic multi-stakeholder approach. We need people who are here to jump into policy, to invoke policy change. Because I believe that policy and politics is something that can kill the best of idea in a split second. And so, if we are going to really achieve a lot of change, we need people to begin to not just, yeah, we need to have more educators. And that's why I say multi stakeholder. We need more educators, we need more advocates, but much more, we need to push for policies that support and promote ESDs in our university, policies that supports collaboration across geographical locations. Thank God for technology. And the third, I hope I would have chance to elaborate on this point later. And the third, as I close, is we need to understand the importance of technology in this age, the importance of technology to promoting ESD for a meaningful change. COVID is one blessing in disguise, like I like to say, because it has pushed us to embracing technology even more. I wouldn't imagine as a student like 5 years ago being told that you need to sit in your house while your lecturer delivers lectures from somewhere remotely. It's unimaginable, but I have had to do that thanks to COVID. And now more people are embracing that. And this gives us a platform, a springboard to further scale and cascade the message that we are sharing. And lastly, we cannot remove inclusion from education for sustainable development. And inclusion is not something we try to figure out along the way, it's something that has to be planned into the process. Inclusion in all sense of inclusion, diversity, people with challenges, every form of inclusion, we have to plan it in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oleg Benga, for your detailed take on the topic. My question to so I'll begin my question with what Oleg Benga was talking about. That learners learn more from outside the classroom or the school than they learn within the school. So this is a trick question. I hope you you're able to take this up. So what are some of the pitfalls that you think educators as well as educational institutions should avoid while implementing education for sustainable development, or something that you think like we need to have a more uh, rethink on in the way we are going about usual business. So who'd like to take this one? I think either of you can take this question. Like, what do you think are the pitfalls? What do you think are some of the things that we are not doing the way uh, we should, that could bring in the kind of change that we are looking for?
Do you want me
I would
to?
like to push in Fuluki now.
Okay. In 2020, like my co-panelist said, COVID came. A lot of schools were shut down. Okay. And that was when we started Solution 17 for climate action in Covenant University. The first option was for us to shut down the project till COVID was ready to let the world go. But I thought of technology and I told my team, guys, we're not going to shut down this project. We will run this project the entire year. We did. We were successful in it. So what I have learned beyond 2020 is we are implementing education for sustainable development right here in Nigeria. So we collaborated with the government because I know inclusion is so important, like my co-panelist said, very important. The policymakers are so important. We can't do this alone. Okay, it's easier to access private schools. How do we access public schools and on schools without partnering with the right channel? So we partner with the Lagos state government. And during the partnership, we realized that they have over 700 public schools that need a lot of awareness on education for sustainable development goals. But you know what? What we got was after partnership, we design education for project that the student can learn from because it has to be learned outside the walls of the classroom. So we partner with the teachers, we give them our curriculum, okay, because we already had approval from the government. It was easy to penetrate, so we penetrated the schools. But what I have learned most in the last 6 months, we have been working on community tree planting in the school to drive climate education. Russ, the key stakeholders needs to be part of this project. You can't impose projects on communities. No, we needed them to co-create. So we went to the school, we co-created the project with each of the school. We're working with 40 schools at the moment. Yet, the next thing we did was introduce a project based, a challenge based, where they can learn from the very beginning. So we introduced the tree planting. And in each school, we have 50 eco champions. It was very strategic. We wanted all other students to join them, but we needed to raise champions. And we gave we trained the champions to become the trainers. So they became very aware of the project. What then happened? It was easier for us to teach them innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, art innovation through the system that we drove, and we're still driving in other schools. And each of our eco champion became carer of each of the trees. Okay, what happened next was for us to introduce technology. For instance, a child A in grade 5 can log into an internet app and see his name on a project, and anybody around the world can view that same project. We told them about carbon sequestration, they already know, they knew by practical drive. We told them about environmental pollution and ecosystem conservation, they knew. We told them about how they could convert problems within their immediate environment to social impact and profit. So they learned outside the walls of the classroom, doing the practical, implementing the practical project to get practical knowledge that they can also transfer to their colleagues. With this system, we had 600 students on our database learning education for sustainable development without altering their normal subjects. So I think for me, we need to get out of the box. We can't box ourselves anymore. We need to use technology and drive solutions. Now, a child within our platform realized today that the reason why he or she is on the platform is to create solution that will help the environment, that will help food security, that will help gender equality, that will help SDG 1 to 17 right in one project. So we didn't need to go back and teach and teach and teach. They knew just by looking at the project. And the policymakers are happy. because they saw that their students are going into global circle, and they were happy to join us to launch the treat tracking technology. So let us reimagine education on the streets outside the wall of the schools to ensure that we deliver this project. And it's doable, it's replicable, it can be replicated all around the world. We only need partners that will work to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Faluki, for sharing your thoughts. Luana, you've been working on integrating SDGs as well as using virtual collaboration to bridge the gap, bridge cultures. So my question to you is, when you look at the characteristics of a person who you believe is a sustainable individual, specifically when you're looking at learners, what are the characteristics that you think make somebody a sustainable individual?
Thank you, Aaron. First of all, honestly, nowadays, as our colleague Fuluk was speaking, I was thinking that our students, our youth, has still to develop in this sense. I have to tell you that I have come across very few youngsters that were really sustainable. They are young after all. They are very much contaminated by all of this consumerism, no culture that we have around. For them, actually, it is a struggle. But it is true that some of them, they have more, let's say, sensitivity to this topic. More than being sustainable themselves, I would say that there are different degrees of sensibility, no, to this topic. It is also true that there are people who have more initiatives, so they really are more propense to taking the initiative, to organizing people. So it's a combination of different skills that bring this, and especially leadership skills. Probably my colleagues have also seen that before, that there are some people that are blessed, no, and that also have had some experience and the opportunity to develop leadership skills. But what I would like to come back to is to Foluke's comment on really having this or giving students this authentic opportunity, educational opportunity. While she was speaking, I was thinking, at the end of the day, this is all of what education is about. It's not only in ASD, it's in everything. Nowadays, we are seeing this changing mindset to a learner-centered approach. This is how we should teach everything, not only sustainable development.
Right.
So the idea nowadays is that we begin from the student. So what are the needs of this student? What is the surroundings of these students? What do they relate to? And then you build the experience backwards, right? So it's not beginning from content to the student, it's beginning from the student to the content. So it's really defending this change in the educational approach to a learner-centered approach, to authentic educational experiences in everything, not only sustainable development, but especially in sustainable development, this works, right? Another thing, when talking about individuals who are sustainable, I think that what our young people mostly need right now is inspiration, because I think that many times they are not aware of their power. They are not aware of it. So when you start to give them examples of a girl in England who used the social media to engage with policymakers, to change how young girls have period poverty, no, and to call the attention to period poverty, and she's just 14 years old and she had this idea while she was having breakfast. Then when you started to show them these examples, they say, woof, I think I can do the same. I also have this power. So it's really empowering them and showing them that they have so many channels that they can use, and that sometimes a simple post can have such a big impact in this sense. No, so starting small, that's what I tell them. Just look at one small thing that you can do in your surroundings, and you might be surprised about the power that you have to impact people. And this is the good thing about technology nowadays, no, that it has this exponential power of reaching people who we never imagined that we would reach, maybe, you know. So this is these are interesting insights that I was having while I was hearing my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Luana. So, Urukbenga, you work on youth capacities and competencies. So, if there are three competencies that you would like to identify for any individual to be more sustainable or to have a sustainable lifestyle, what would those three competencies be?
Well, thank you very much. First, I would say leadership is everything. Yeah, leadership is everything. It takes leadership to assume responsibility. I would come to developing on that, and then you need to also think about intuition. Or let me put that under creativity, and the third will be innovativeness. So when I say leadership, I mean how conscious of the environment is the person we're talking about. I'll give you an example. I was at a restroom and I was trying to wash my hand and I saw someone just beside me, very young person, and he was just running the water and he wasn't using it. So I stopped the tap and it was like, "What's up? You're not paying the bill." I was like, "It's not about the bill. Even if we have to pay the bill, it's not about the bill. It's about understanding that this water you're running comes from somewhere and you are wasting it. It's the waste. It's not the penalty or what you have to suffer." So we need people who have this ability to identify that there is a problem and they are ready to lead on the alleviation of it, and that's leadership. And then the second is when we see these things, how creative, how dynamic can we be at creating ingenious solutions to these things? How do we fix it? How can we fix it? When I was looking at the profile of the panelist and I saw what Foluka is doing, I was like, wow, how how is this even combining? And there is a lot more, and we must understand that these young, let me say we young people, because I'm still young, right? There's a lot that we can do. There's a whole lot that we can do. There's a whole lot that we can bring together. We just need to have that enabling environment and something to stimulate that ability to create. And then the third is innovativeness. And that begins first with the mindset that nothing is impossible. I just have to figure out a way of doing it. So, and that's why I said in my opening remark that we need to take classroom away, I mean, learning away from the classroom. I remember the first institution where I taught, the students eventually labeled me the man from Pluto before I left because they felt I didn't come from the planet Earth. And why is that? Other lecturers would ask me, how would you complete your course outline if you teach like this? And I told them, it's not, for me, it's not about completing a written course outline. It's about delivering the goal of the course. I don't have to teach every single thing on the agenda. I have to make sure I achieve the objective of that course. And I ask the students, so what are we doing today? This is what we want to talk about. Sometimes we have to watch movies in the class, short clips, and then from there we begin to bring out ideas and say, okay, this can be this can be this. And you see students translating ideas from the class into real life innovation. So leadership, creativity, and innovativeness I mean, there are three core ingredients I think young persons need when it comes to education for sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that one, Urukbenga. So, if there is an aha moment that you'd like to share with us, like while you were implementing your GC, I'm sorry, your ESD plans or lessons out there. So some of you have also worked in the non-formal space as much as you worked in the formal spaces. So if you can just share with us, like, what was that aha moment that you like to see that translated in a formal education space where you have uh, classroom teachers, like, taking that up. Uh, so can we have Luana go ahead with it, and then we can have others join in.
Yes, sure. Here I work at the Teaching Innovation Unit, no, at University of Deusto. And the other day we had a meeting with some colleagues from Germany, and we were discussing of how powerful it is to bring our education students examples of how schools are implementing ESTs and how these inspire them to put it forward in their own practice, no, as teachers who are still being trained. So I think it all goes back to everything that we have been discussing before. To really, the aha thing is authenticity, is bringing real experiences, is inspiring people, is working together with the community. So it's really making it really not about having it just as part of the content agenda of the school or of the university, but really about creating a culture of sustainability that students really can live in. So this is the aha for me, at least. No, it's about building a culture of sustainability in your educational environment, be it at school or at university.
Thank you, Luana. I couldn't agree more on that. I think it all boils down to the culture, and if there are any you call um, any discrepancies in the way you act and what you're preaching. So I think the harmony between your school's environment and what you're teaching should go hand in hand. I think that's a very interesting perspective. Faluki, you have worked with a lot of schools and educators in the formal space, as well as, like, your initiative operates out of a non-formal environment. So my question to you was, like, what was the aha moment while you were working with schools that you realized that every school can take that up?
I didn't get that. Every school can do what?
So, what was that aha moment while you were working with schools that you thought, okay, this is something that every school can do?
Yes. Let me just share a small experience with you. When we started, our team is a bit small, and we didn't want to employ so many other team members to join us. So we're thinking, now that the government is ready to give us about 600 and something school, we weren't expecting that, and we're to start from 40. So we put all the entire team, 50 innovators, into a group, and then we have 600. We're wondering, how may we, our problem statement became, how may we ensure that the quality of education or project-based or solution-driven approach will be implemented with the other schools simultaneously? Here is the moment. As soon as we implemented, we're doing school after school, and we didn't rush. We started in April this year, the school project. The university project started in 2020. So I'm going into the secondary school project right now. Immediately we trained the first 50. We saw a new dimension of engagement. We were supposed to be the teachers, but we did not know we were grooming teachers within the students. We saw the fact that they were volunteering to go to other schools to help us implement the project in other community. Immediately we saw them that we are going to be rewarding a good practice, the best practices, inspiring story, and inspiring breakthrough. We saw more interest. Instead of choosing 50 in a school, we had more other students rushing to be part of it. Now, the wow for me was the other students, the thousands of other students realized that we have created stars, influencers, and they wanted to become part of change makers. So, meaning we do not need a whole lot to convert the entire school community within a state. a nation or countries. We only need few of them that are ready to go first, and then they can go forth and replicate. Today, we're now having them joining our green entrepreneurs. We have created a tech-based platform. They are in a hurry to become social innovator, product creator. So we have to we have to infuse technology, innovativeness, and all of that into the package. We're bringing tech team to impact them with how do I make my tree better than the other. So we are using live event to teach them what they should know. The practical way to change the world is grooming young people to develop solution, event products that can be sold, okay? At the same time, solving social impact. Students are interested in this. You find out we have to lecture the teachers that when you go to the classroom, like my colleague Olubenga and Luana had said, don't be too stiff with these people. Tell story, use storytelling, use project examples. Let them tell us what they have in mind. Today, we have not just raised students, we have raised teachers. That is the aspect that I think is going to work for different communities. And I think we could implement this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that one, Fluke. I think you cannot create leaders of tomorrow. I keep saying this again and again. If you don't create one today, so I think one of the things that I could draw from your anecdote was how your project was able to create that space for leaders to emerge. And I think as schools, as educators, one of the things that we need to look at is how can we create this space where young people can take the lead. Uh, and don't wait for them to become leaders tomorrow because tomorrow never comes. So if you don't work on it today. So thank you for that one, Fuluke. My next question, I think post this we'll move on to the audience question. So my next question to all of you is basically when you look at the qualitative or transformative aspects of education and sustainable development, do you think that there is a need for us to reimagine the learning spaces? Because structurally, when you see countries, whether it's in the developed world or the developing world or the global north or global south, you have a certain pattern in which classrooms are set up. You have a certain pattern in which schools are set up. So do you think that there is a need for us to reimagine those physical learning spaces to accommodate for the kind of sustainable development education that we are looking at and sustainable lifestyles that we are driving towards? So uh, I think either of the three of you can go ahead. So I would like to know from each one of you, because I think you come from diverse backgrounds. You have Olugbenga right now in Morocco, Luana in Spain, and uh, Fuluke in Nigeria, but you've all had like diverse global experiences. So I just want to know from your perspectives, like, what do you think are some of the changes that a teacher can make? Because I do understand that, like, on a larger level, you might need structural changes that go beyond. But within the classroom layout, if there's something that a teacher can, what would that be?
I can take this one first. First of all, I believe that in terms of traditional spaces, I mean the classroom space, for sure we need to turn it around, because education for sustainable development, authentic education, requires collaboration, working in groups, no working together, and having the traditional setup of classroom that has these individual desks with, and here sometimes we even find them attached, no, to the floor, so it doesn't help at all. Thinking about the traditional spaces. Secondly, I think that when we talk about building a culture of sustainability, we can use not only the classroom as a space for learning, but the school as well, no? Going from the smallest part to the biggest one, no? So the school can be an environment for education, and joining classes, joining forces, mixing ages, bringing community into the school. There is so much that can be done that the possibilities are endless. And then, of course, the community itself. So I think that many teachers already do it. We have to be fair. I think that many teachers already have this initiative of taking their students and bringing them to the real world, no? So visiting NGOs, visiting, I don't know, some spots that have some special needs regarding sustainability, or maybe it's a place, it's a river in the city that has a lot of trash, or maybe it's an immigrant community that I don't know, needs more structure for education. So I think that's really bringing them there. And what what I have learned from my experience is that students not always are able to critically think by themselves. And this is where we are, as teachers, we come together with them. We take their hand and we say, what do you see here? Do you believe this is the way that it has to be? What do you think that can be done about this? So proposing questions, helping them to look at their surroundings from a critical, thinking perspective. So in this sense, there are so many possibilities, and even the technology, as we were discussing before, this is a third space, no? So people are talking about the virtual world as a third space with a third culture. So there is so much that can be done there. If you told me 5 years ago that, that I would find technology so useful to getting students from different countries to discussing sustainable development, I would never believe you. And nowadays, I see my students having calls, sitting together, talking, in my case in business, no field, talking about how companies in different countries approach SDGs and what they do good, what they do in that is correct, what could they do better? And I would never believe if you told me this 5 years ago. And so I think it's really taking advantage of this third new space of technology. No, I would say possibilities are endless in this sense. It's really what Olubeng and Felipe were saying before. It's thinking about thinking out of the box. No. And really trying to see in every different space a possibility for educating.
Thank you, Luana. Loki.
I will just go next. I'm just going to dive in, and everything Luana had said resonates with me. I'm just going to add. What I will add it with an example. In the country where I live, government is very slow. And when I'm talking now, I'm talking more about the public schools where decision making is very slow. It is difficult to change the spaces. There are few things you need the government to do that ordinarily should happen within a week, and it's taking 6 months to achieve that. So I would say change the mindset of the student through a new methodology that must be delivered by the teachers. The children we have at school right now, they are not patient like when we were in school. It's technology age. They want to learn really fast. They don't want to wait for 2 hours to learn biology. They don't want to do physics and stay. They are tuned up from the class. So the teacher should learn mind building and understand the students that are actually being taught, because most of the time they are tuned off from your class. So your methodology must change. For instance, we want to teach development education for peace or education for justice, which we did successfully in 2017 and 2018, and it won the best award in the world. How did we do that? You need to co-create your teaching methodology with your students by coming with question based the teaching method. You're coming to class, like our country is having a problem. We're having corruption issue. What may we do to reduce the level of corruption in our country? Now, they came up with different approaches in that class. We used 20 schools for that project. At the end of the round, within 3 months, they came up with live paintings of my own country, how it was seen in their eyes. and we deliver a whole curriculum of education for peace without the normal teaching. Now, the whole essence of this is we need to come back to class and allows I started by saying our world is in trouble. We need to back new generation and new leaders that will provide solutions to many problems that we have. So if you are a physics teacher, you should come to the class with technology that will help us to fix the space that we're living. If you are a biology teacher, you should come to the space and let them realize that the environment is in trouble. How may we reimagine agriculture? Let them co-create the answers. Then you see interest. So for us to lead change in the world, our students must co-create solutions with us as teachers. The solutions can be taken to rural community for implementation. So this is the way I see it. Let us change our approach. The physical spaces are the best, but how long will it take the government to replace all of these spaces? And lastly, where you are teaching, some students are very slow, some are medium students, some are very excellent. You need to, as a teacher, you must appreciate and develop their reasoning capacity. You must develop what are they learning, how are they learning, then recreate the classroom without the government by changing the tables and the chairs. Put them in class of six, six, or five, five. Let the very brilliant one co-create solution with the medium one, so that the medium guy can pick up and learn. We need to teach differently and allow our students to become teachers for this generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faluki. Just building on to what Faluki was talking about, I think the teacher in any classroom is the most curious child you would see. Like if the teacher is effective, you'd see that teacher as a curious child within the group. So I think with that, I yield the floor to Oluk Benga. So if you can share.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to maybe verbally applaud my co-panelists. It's been a really educating one again for me. So really talking about where all these plays, I think first of all, we need to reimagine the entire learning agenda. We need to reimagine the entire learning space. And we need to reimagine it for Lucas said, we come from the same country. We know how things can be really slow, especially if you have to wait for the government. And this is where reimagination comes in. We are gunning for the problems. We need to reimagine how do I use the existing structures, existing resources to create a solution that I need. I have taught in that same environment and I knew what it can mean. And sometimes I just tell my students, you know what? Today we are not meeting in the class. We are meeting at the car park. And they kept looking like it's like this guy is insane. What are we going to do at the car park? And then we get to the car park, we are talking business. And I'm talking business because I want to explain the Toyota model and I want to explain different things and I want to. So I'm showing you you can see the cars at the car park. And so when I'm talking about automotive assembling, you can see parts when I'm asking you, so think about a part of a car. You just need to look around and you can see what you need to tell me. That stimulates their learning. And I think again that we need to really, really play down on competitive learning space to a more collaborative learning space. I tell my students it doesn't make sense to me if you have 90 and the person who is always seated next to you in class has 40. So what have you been sitting together for? What happens to the things we discussed when I left? What do you guys talk about? So we need to bring the students to a place of collaborating, co-learning. I want to learn, I want to share. And really, both other panelists have agreed, I think that the students are also teachers. A number of times I pull my students into group, I give them what the agenda for the coming class, and I tell them, so your group will be teaching us this session of the course in the coming class. And one aha moment I found was a particular group decided to act consumer behavior as a drama. I was amazed. They gave us a 15 minutes presentation to teach consumerism in drama. They acted. The script was well played out, and everybody was like, wow. The entire students were challenged, and that's because they had the mind from the very beginning of the class that the class belongs to them, and it's not about the teacher or the person standing out there. So this is what I think we need to reimagine going forward, that class belongs to the students. Let's give it back to them. Two, we need to create an environment that stimulates collaboration more than competition. And third, we need to stimulate, and we need to try to use whatever we have. And I'm saying this because of participants who may be listening from emerging economies where resources are not so available and where things cannot be done really fast. We need to see how we can leverage whatever we have to start to get us going. Will just imagine if Foluke had to wait for the government who would take 6 months. You just have to say, what do we have right now? Even if the government is going to come or the policymakers will come, let them meet us moving so that we don't have to stay. And lastly, we need to consistently train and retrain the trainers. When we discover stuff, when we see stuff, I think there should be there should be more synergy between non-governmental organizations like what Foluke is doing and say institutes of educations. There's a lot for educators to learn from the practitioners. And we can't shy away from that. We can run away from that. If I am preparing students to come work with Harrian's company, then I need people from his company to come talk to my students about what they are doing there so that we can connect the future with the present. And this is what I think we need to do going forward. And lastly, I don't know what model, or maybe this will be for Luana, a model to give a feedback of the education space to the policy makers. I think most times policymakers only hear from the educators when there is a need. But how do we communicate the results that we get? Because results brings motivation. So when we achieve stuff, how are they seeing the output from the resources they had committed before? And when people see results, they are more motivated to commit even further. So I think there should be a feedback loop that gives a more robust interaction between the education space, the industry, and the policymakers, so that we all roll together. The policy commits to it. They say, oh, this is where our resources have been going to. The industry can also participate. And when I say the industry, I'm talking about both the non-governmental, the for-profit, the non-profit. Everyone in that space need to also be a part of the society that creates a sustainable education. And going for, so when I tell the government I want you to redesign the structure of my class so that a child who is physically challenged can easily access the classroom, they can understand. Because there is a feedback. They know that there's this guy who is physically challenged or gifted differently in my class who's been participating in this way. So these are the things that I imagine within the classroom that I believe we need to consolidate and put forward to move us forward in achieving a sustainable society.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that one, Olukbenga. So we are towards the end of our discussion, but we have an exciting phase where each of the panelists get exactly 30 seconds. It's a timed initiative to ask a question to another panelist. So it goes in cycles, as you may know, and then you have about 2 minutes to respond. Again, it's timed. So let's begin with the panelist round of questions. So Faluki, if you can ask a question to either of the two panelists, and we'll go in in the same order. All right, thank you. You are on mute, Faluki.
Now, my question. Most of the things I would have loved to ask has been answered. So I'm just going to shoot this trace. How do we ensure that sustainable education gets to the unschooled? And what form of dissemination? And I'm going to ask the two of you, because where I come from, they're large. I mean, high population for the unschooled. We have encountered them during implementation. How do we ensure? Because it has to be an inclusive system for us to see results. Thank you.
Uh, Faluki, if you can just direct it to one of the people, because then
Okay, let me direct this one to Olubenga.
yeah, yes, okay.
Okay, so thank you. Well, I believe that if we have to school the unschooled, then we have to take the schools out of the school.
Yeah.
We need, if the for whatever reasons, and speaking within the context of Nigeria, for example, we have people in really troubled region like the northeast where going to school is really challenging. And even if the schools are there and the educators are prepared for the students, but the fear of going to school is a lot. So we need to begin to recognize non-formal form of learning as a true way of learning. The reasons the students don't want to commit to non-formal learning is because they are not recognized as actually learning. So they feel like it's a waste of time or we are playing. But if there is a formal recognition for non-formal learning, then more persons can show interest. If we see people who are renowned, and this can be really promoted by renowned educators, by people who are authority in the space, to say, oh, because I have come to realize, I don't know if this applies for Luke, and maybe Laura may be able to talk within the context of developed economies like the UK and maybe Europe and Spain. What you say is not as important as who is saying it sometimes. So we need these big voices who can really say, see, gathering students to teach them chemistry under a tree can work. Teaching diversity, teaching peace education can be taught in the market square. And when we have people who are established authorities endorsing these non-formal forms of learning, then even the parents have some degree of trust for the process. Because really, until we really, really begin to know that most people will not be able to enter the school now. So what we need to do is to take the school to them wherever we can capture them. So I tell the women who would force their children to go sell in the evening to say, instead of your children coming to sell at 4 p.m., let them come at 3. So I'll teach them from 3 to 3 or from 3 to 4 p.m. And from 4 p.m. they can continue with their selling. And the parents are okay, they are serving their parents and they are learning at the same time. And if there is a recognition, there is a reward, that people begin to see how much learning has transformed the kids, then they may be ready and willing to commit to this. I think I've exceeded my time. I'm sorry. I forgot it was time.
Yeah. Yes. If you can quickly ask a question to either of the panelists, so that
Okay, so the question I'm going to ask from maybe Luana, so that it doesn't look like I'm shooting my question back to Foluke, is as an educator, right? How do we bring to bear the issue of the need to evolve curriculum? Because the needs of our societies continue to change. And so what we prepare the students for need to change.
all right.
Some of these
Thank
things
you.
have to follow certain processes. So how do you think we can bring in evolution into curriculum development?
Thank you, Olubenga. This is a very good question, actually. I think that it has a lot to do with policy. because policy influences a lot curriculum. No, so we as official educational institutions, we need to follow mainly what is set by policy. But it is also interesting that when it comes to education for sustainable development, what I have learned from experience is that um, everything that we teach can embed it. And this is really nice about this, no? If I teach business, I can just make a twist in my content to approach SDGs, for example. If someone teaches education, it's just we usually already work with projects and everything. It's about just taking the decision of working with it as a content. So at this, I think that it's such a transversal topic that it is not so hard to approach it in curriculum because there is always an opportunity to integrate it into different subjects and knowledge fields. I think the bell is ringing.
Okay,
But
thank
thank you,
you for
Olubenga,
yeah, thank you.
for the
Thank
question.
you. Thank you, Luana. Luana, if you can direct your question to either of the participants.
Sure. My question will go to Foluke. I would like, I was very interested when I saw your work about anti corruption. And it's such an important issue in every country, I would say, around the world, but some
Yes.
even more than others. And I would like to ask out of curiosity, what do you believe should be the first step for an educator that wants to approach this issue with young people? How can we start to talk about this?
Okay, I'm just going to tell you how we started. When we
Wonderful.
wanted to start, people were really copying me because of the country I come from, that this is a bad project, don't do it. But we went ahead to do it. So, how did we start? We started by approaching the government, we got a no. We approached the school directly, we got a no. So we put up the project into the media and we threw the challenge to every schools that we are building a culture of integrity without talking about corruption. We changed our language of anti-corruption group to building the culture of accountability and peace, accountability and integrity. And we want students to come up with an essay backed by Professor Wale Shoyinka, who is really renowned, is behind our project. So we put in the topic where the new Nigeria, free from corruption, was our essay. We asked for essay. So we got a lot of submission from different schools. They went through interview. We selected the best until we got 20. We wrote to the parents of the 20 and to the school, and we were able to get international embassy to support us. I'm going to forward the project to you. It's on United Nations websites and different UNODC. You can read about it. It's disseminated globally.
Thank you, Faloki, for your response. And
Sorry, I won't mind getting that project too. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to post it, post the website. It has been put on UN website permanently for global dissemination, so you can have it.
thank you, Faloki. Luana, Olugbenga, I think it was quite inspiring to hear from each one of you. I mean, it's like the experiences that you bring is so diverse and beautiful to just have an experience of listening to you. So now we move on to the last part of the discussion. I mean, so like we'll be moving into the informal space where you can interact with the participants right now. I would just like to formally conclude the discussion. See, we had a couple of questions. I think we've answered them via chat. So those of you who are interested as educators to be a part of an educator community, you can join the educational leadership commune. The whole idea of the community is to bring educators with purpose closer together to make a difference in your schools, districts, communities. Uh, so you can network with other educators from around the world. My team would be posting a link to join the community. So this is at no cost to you, and you can engage with other education leaders. Now, let me formally our discussion today. One of the things that's we feel is, as educators, shaping an intentional and inclusive learning space, an ecosystem, and having these nurturing practices towards creating an environment that is truly empathetic, compassionate, mindful, and fosters a space for all teachers, students, and staff members to grow and thrive is a responsibility of every educator and every leader in the education sector. Personally, I believe as educators, school leaders, and even students, we all have both the power and potential to affect the positive transformation in each other's lives. So I do understand that we still have a lot of questions that we may not have been able to cover or answer sufficiently through this discussion. Please send us an email to outreach@edplanet.net or tag us on your post on social media with your thoughts, suggestions, ideas, and feedbacks on the feedback on the event. We'd be delighted to know more from you. Also, you can send us your recommendation on topics that you'd like us to cover or deliberate in the future discussions. We have the Global Distinguished Lecture Series on the same issue on 11, that is tomorrow at 12:30 UTC. Hope to see you tomorrow as well. Thank you for sharing your amazing ideas at the 21st Educational Leadership Forum. Also, do not forget to join the global networking session that's happening at the end of this session on behalf of the Global Citizenship Foundation, the Council for Global Citizenship Education, and all our attendees. I extend our deepest gratitude to our panelists for taking out the time out of the busy schedules and enriching this discourse through their amazing ideas, insights, and experiences. Also, I thank you for being a part of the Education Leadership Forum family and for everything you've been doing to advance the discourse on transforming education for human and planetary flourishing. We really appreciate the time, the insights, and the effort that you all have contributed to driving this extremely crucial discussion towards shaping the many futures of education for generations of young people. Please proceed to the lounge for the networking and expand your reach and network. See you soon. Until then, take care, stay safe, and spread love and compassion. Our world needs it the most. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much,
very much.
Marian.
Thank you. Thank you.